Recording in progress.
All right, ready to start the Star Spangled Banner?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
That building there in front of looks just like my brother's hunting shack.
Yeah,
Marguerite, what do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
prototypical red arm.
Anyway, good morning, everybody. What we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, I'm going to introduce the people who are on my board. Catherine Heaviside is with us, Lisa Kerr, and Matthew Arasich is with us, and
Julie.
Julie Lutz. Is there any other board members on there? Oh, yes, Doyle, Bob Doyle.
Lisa Kerr.
Who? Oh, yeah, Lisa Kerr. I did say Lisa. And by the way, Frank, I want all the people who are on a board to be open mic at all times, so, in case they have something they want to introduce.
I believe I've changed it today so that everyone can mute and unmute themselves. At this point now, going forward, the meeting should be that way.
Okay. All right. So what I want to do is explore areas that maybe we've covered before in the past, but whether it should be the emphasis of what we are as a unit and what we do.
Ernie, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Marguerite, are you in the same, is there a door you can close between you and Ernie? I think we're getting an echo because both of you have the mics open.
I'll mute mine. It is closed.
Okay, go ahead, Ernie, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm thinking in terms of what new ideas that we might want to do. Over the time we've covered education, bringing in the presidents of just about every college or university on Long Island, and BOCES as well. In fact, Julie hosted a wonderful breakfast for us years ago. Yeah, I still hear that echo, Frank.
Yeah, I'm gonna try muting everyone else while you're speaking, and then everyone else can unmute themselves whenever they need to speak, okay? Let's try that. Go ahead, Ernie.
Yeah, so
Better.
so I was saying that Julie opened our eyes to what is really out there in terms of training those people who either want to go to college and still have these skills, or they want to bypass college altogether and make their living with their wrenches and hammers, which is the way I made my living in the beginning myself until I got some education. And so we have to address, I got a note from John Tanagrady that he wants us to be emphasize more on the marine environment. And, of course, that's his specialty, and I think it's important. He brought to our attention the importance of the horseshoe crab, which is, nobody would have ever thought of this, and I certainly didn't, that the horseshoe crab was very essential to medicine, and how the blood of the horseshoe crab is used in hospitals all over the country and all over the world. And I see Matthew is here, and he might be wanting to get more emphasis on labor. So the discussion is open. Anybody who wants to say something right now, they can. Lisa, your specialty is medical supplies. That's your company, Henry Schein. If you, if you think we need to do something in that area, we can do that too. I see we're getting more people on. So, all right, Frank, you have any opening remarks you'd like to make?
No, as you said, I think we're looking to see what ideas the board members might have for the next phase. We're also sort of pivoting. Everybody may not be aware, but the next meeting will be in person. Maybe you want to cover the details of that. It still says, Julie says she's not being allowed to unmute. So, okay, I don't know. It says on my screen that participants are allowed to unmute.
Julie's open now.
Oh, maybe I had it backwards. I think I did. I'm sorry, my mistake. Participants can unmute themselves. So let's now.
Anybody on the board can, at the moment, unmute themselves if they have something they want to interject. If
Gotcha.
you do that and you do interject, once you make your statement, I want you to mute yourself, because otherwise we might be giving interference with the next person.
So just point of clarification, you're looking for suggestions of future topics and speakers?
Yeah.
Okay, one I would have, and I don't know if this would be along your same line of interest, Matthew, in labor, but would be the challenges that I think a lot of folks are having with entry-level workforce, filling entry-level workforce positions, and what kinds of things we can do to improve that.
Matthew, when you when you bring in a craftsman for training, he has to have some really good basic skills before he even starts. Isn't that true?
No.
No?
No. Has to have zero skills.
Yeah.
That's what the concept is. We embrace everybody to make sure that they get the opportunity to learn the skills that they need. The rudimentary things that they have to have is math and a little bit of safety skills. The rest of that is a learned trait. Now, don't get me wrong. I will tell you that individuals have better skill sets than others. However, that's where they can go ahead and drive themselves into the field or the trade that they're looking to do. That's where Opportunities Long Island comes in. It's a
Do you interact with people in Julie's craft from time to time?
I interacted
BOCES.
on Long Island.
BOCES, I mean.
As a matter of fact, we just went ahead and we formed an alliance with BOCES in Nassau to work with Opportunities Long Island to drive more people into the building trades. The reason is, if you look at the dynamics between Nassau and Suffolk counties, you'll find that out of every 25 people or so that come from the Opportunities Long Island pre-apprentice program, 3 of them will come from Nassau. We've tried everything to go ahead and get that path for moving into communities of color, enticing women to try to get into the program as well. It has been unsuccessful. However, now that we're going into the BOCES thing, we're going to sidestep all of the, let's use the word, the bad dynamics of, relying on people to contact us and working for people that actually have a path already, and we're just going to bring them along. This way, what will actually happen is BOCES will be doing much of the recruiting, and in layman's terms, we'll be stealing them to take them for the trades. But that's exactly what they like too. And as a matter of fact, I even had a conversation with Dr. Dillon, And I said, listen, if you have people coming into your program, it's a 2-year program, would you feel slighted if we took them after a year? And he said, no. Matter of fact, as long as we get them into the program, you're able to go ahead and take them at any time. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
So that dovetails with you, Julia, a lot, I see. You know, you brought up something, Matthew, people of color. If you look at this screen, there's nobody from the Black community on this screen. And that's frustrating to me, because I've invited people to come to the LIMBA meetings and to be participants. We're doing something wrong. I just don't know what it is.
Well, that's exactly what the problem was in Nassau County when we're talking about trying to get people into the trade. What happened was I actually did a presentation for Long Island Railroad MTA with a fellow named Michael Garner, who is the Chief Diversity Officer for Long Island Railroad. I've known him for quite a few years. Earlene Hooper was the Deputy Speaker of the Assembly. And what happened was we decided to put together a program, and they expected 30 or 40 people to show up in Roosevelt High School to learn about projects that are available for them and jobs. It's not really jobs, it's careers in both the building trades and the Long Island Railroad. So we had an in-depth conversation. In fact, we didn't have 30 or 40 people. We actually had better than 350 people show up. So if you speak before a group and you have the message. I had another fellow with me, who was a member of the sheet metal workers. His name was Nathan Maids, I'm sorry. And Nathan is a man of color. Well, between the two of us, we addressed all the needs and all the topics of what the Long Island Railroad and the building trades had in store for them. Then 2 hours later, we did it again to anybody who was new. And Earlene Hooper actually said, you need to contact these people. Michael Garner said, you need to contact these people. I gave away 300 business cards. So it was a success. Well, it wasn't a success because I didn't receive one phone call afterwards. So the message is there, but everything is like the chain. And there's a weak link somewhere. We haven't identified it. And that.
Having grown up on Long Island my whole life, and you use the railroad as an example, it was everybody always said, well, you need to have you need to have an in. You can't just apply for that job. So I think that the messaging of times have changed has to be the first and foremost thing. It's not what you heard from generations ago. And the same thing with the unions. I grew up, you couldn't get those jobs unless your father worked in the union. That's not the same anymore.
No, as a matter of fact, it's not. In fact, I'm a third generation spanning 140 years in my trade. I'm also the last of my family in this trade. But what I will tell you is when I took over, we used to take 12 or 13 apprentices into the program every year. When I first took over, we took in 40. The next year I took in 40. The following year I took in 38. So the message was we're increasing the membership, and we did it from having roughly 480 people to 612 in a matter of only 18 months. That was a success. The bigger success is in that first class of 40, there were 7 women, and it was 77% minority. So the message was clear. This is not about having jobs for cotton top white guys. It's to make sure that we are respective and reflective of the community. And that's exactly what the message was. It has been successful there. Why we have not been able to replicate that in Nassau County is beyond me. But, we're not giving up. We're trying that with a different perspective now and going with BOCES.
My comment was meant to say that I think you have to erase literally generations of a foregone conclusion. It's a new age, but people especially are going to say, yeah, right, sure, you're going to hire me. You're not going to hire me. You're going to make a speech at the hall, and then, I'll never hear from you again. It's different.
That is correct.
Different than they've heard.
Just out of curiosity, did anybody reach out to people that were originally contacted and ask them why they didn't follow through?
I don't think I did a good job on that either, but it's a good point to get started again.
Well, if that was directed at me, I can answer that question too, which is I reached out to Michael Gardner and said, I haven't gotten any contacts. And there's supposed to be a sign-in sheet from Long Island Railroad when you come in, so you have all the information.
So they didn't share the sheet or follow up.
That is correct.
I wonder if there's a perception about the people in that culture that is keeping people of color out of there. I don't know for sure, but I would be curious to find out more about why they didn't follow up.
Well, we are too, because that would give us a basis to change our platform or to adjust the message to get to the people that need it.
Frank, does everybody on the panel here have the ability to unmute
I
themselves?
believe everyone can unmute.
Okay,
That's what it says on my screen.
yeah, we're not polite around here, so if you want to interrupt, you just do it and make yourself
Yeah.
heard.
Hi, Ernie. I know how difficult it is to reach business people of color. We've had some success with communities of color, and sometimes you just have to reach them in their own, what is important to them. We were trying to get people to vote on something in Amityville and then in Wyandanch. And we actually interacted with the pastors and the barbershops. Those were two areas where the barbershop becomes a little community gathering for many. And the pastors can really reach out to people. So I don't know how to get people of color, business people, because they are all, let's face it, those that have their own business are actually working night and day to make it successful and really feel like they don't have the time. Also, they are, when they're in a company, they may not be in a position to come and join a business discussion.
Yeah, well, do we have some corporate people here? Well, that, Lisa, how are you doing in that regard?
Hi, how you doing? Well, in terms of diversity and inclusion at Henry Schein, there's a big initiative right now to increase the diversity of our workforce. So I think there's awareness, very recent awareness in the past couple of years that we could do better. And several employee resource groups have started, and they're popping up all over. I mean, it started with the Women's Leadership Network. Probably that was the first one, probably about 5 years ago. And suddenly now we see Black professionals. I just went to one for Latinos, Asian, and they're going to be starting a new one they just announced. I don't remember which one, but so there's a big focus right now on employee resource groups, awareness of diversity, and also specific requirements for interviewing individuals of, you have to meet certain criteria that you've at least considered several diverse candidates before you make a hiring decision. So I'm proud of the company. I'm happy to say like there's big movement in this area.
So Ernie, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm going to ask everybody on the screen here. Does everybody know what a body shop is?
Yes.
Just raise your hand.
You mean an auto body shop?
Automobile.
Well, that's actually what I want to ask you, because the question is, most people think that it's an automobile shop. I'm not referring to that. A body shop is a vehicle, and I don't mean a vehicle like a car. It's a process in which formerly incarcerated people and those that have no education, such as high school diploma or GED, are employed by someone. And what they do, they work almost like indentured servants. What happens is, because they can't aspire to go any further, they get to a point of getting just about minimum wage or a little bit more. And then when they ask for a raise or anything like that, or safety equipment, or even the likes of trying to get more jobs or overtime, they're prohibited. And the reason is because they can't go anywhere else. Body shops are becoming prevalent in Nassau County.
This is a negative term.
Yeah, and it's a term, correct. And the reason is it's almost like employment slavery is the best way to say it. They keep them down And the problem is there's no method or no avenue for them to get out of it. Even with the building trades, one of the things you have to get into the apprentice program is you need a GED or a high school diploma. So we're trying to address that, going through an organizing campaign and taking life skills and putting them as credit so that we can move the people out of those dead-end jobs and work forward. We find that going to high schools, although it's a notable and honorable thing to look at people that are graduating high schools and giving them a prospective career, we find that that necessarily isn't the right topic. And I'll tell you why. Everybody that's on this call, I guess the question I have to ask you is, are you doing the same thing that you thought you'd be doing at a high school?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is none of us.
None of us.
Not any.
I don't think any of us.
Correct. And that's why high school isn't the best target. The best target is a community center, because you'll have someone who's maybe he's divorced or she's divorced. Maybe they have 1 or 2 kids. Maybe they've never been married. Maybe they have 2 or 3 dead-end jobs. And the problem is they failed and failed and failed. This is a possibility to get them the careers they need at the right or the opportune time in life so they can provide benefits for their children, for their spouse, etc., and have a career where you can have a retirement and healthcare. That is the most important thing, and that's why we're moving that direction, to ensure that we can try to get the outreach to everybody so they can have a union job.
You know, I wanted to go back to something that Catherine said before. You get the pastor or the barbershop even to interact with you. And I'm wondering, that's a pretty bold move. I mean, could, I walk into a barbershop in a Black area and present myself and be accepted?
Little easier for you.
Absolutely.
For me, if I walk into a barbershop with a suit, I look like a narc. And you get hesitance right away. Correct.
No, but what you can do is put out notifications that there's going to be a meeting, about job opportunities in a bunch of different barbershops to get that pool of people. I would just like to, speak to Matthew's comments. So for those who don't know, I work for Eastern Suffolk BOCES, and, amongst other things, we do a lot of job preparation for both high schoolers and adults. One of the things that we just recently made a decision to do, and I've been here for almost 32 years, and we have always had the requirement that you must have a GED or a high school diploma to work here. You have to be able to produce it, which is really crazy when you think about some of the people we're employing and how long ago they were in high school. So we are rewriting our entry-level job descriptions to talk about the skills that are required, and we are removing the requirement for a high school diploma because we've realized that being able to get that high school diploma doesn't necessarily mean that you have the skill set we need for that job. And it actually came up, we were hiring some sort of a laborer. I don't remember if it was I think it was actually a licensed electrician. So we could find a licensed electrician who couldn't produce the high school diploma. And we said, this is crazy. Like, we looked at the civil service requirements. We looked at anything we had in writing. We don't have that anywhere in writing in our policy. And we said, then we're just going to change it. And I will say this, I haven't worked to really message that across this agency, because people's first reaction is like, you are, dumbing down the requirements. It's like, no, it's not. It's about, articulating what is really needed to do this particular job that we're hiring to. Now, obviously, some of the things we hire to, other people set the criteria. Teachers are certified by the state of New York. Civil service has a whole lot of requirements for the different job titles that we hire to. But there are job titles where people can meet those requirements from our external entities, but couldn't meet the requirement to be able to produce a high school diploma and could absolutely do the job. So we also have been doing a tremendous amount of work, working to make our workforce look like the communities we serve, which is our messaging. And we realize that's a huge roadblock to doing that. And, you know, so that's just one of many, many things that we're doing to change the way our workforce looks.
Julie, I wanted to say, my oldest brother, who is now passed away, was the top captain on the for the building of the Verrazzano Bridge. He never graduated high school and never got a diploma, but he was recognized by United States Steel and all of the major construction companies as one of the best in the industry. And he made a lot of money. He was a very successful guy. So you got, you know, sometimes people have a basic education, they just never finished the high school, and they know how to do things, and they, you know. So I think you're on the right track.
So Julie, one of the things I want to mention is you're on the right track, and I've been saying this for quite a few years. When you run a labor organization and you have the apprentice program, that's some of the criteria. When we interview people, we would go through the process, and there's 100 people that are going for 20 jobs. When you get to the number 30, you say to yourself, what a shame. He'd make a great construction worker, but he doesn't have the qualifications. So we message that, and that's where we always try to get another alternative, which is try to organize them a different direction. Set them up with a friendly non-union contractor and then organize them from there. But that takes a period of time, and some people get, you know, discouraged. What I've been waiting for is a message like yours, which BOCES is going to eliminate that requirement. The reason is because if you get a certification or some kind of a graduation certificate from BOCES, I want to go ahead and use that as a substitute for either a GED or a high school education, move them into the program. How's that sound?
Patty, can I just respond to both you and Julie? Because, you know, at B&L, this is a national laboratory. So the vast majority of the positions here require a university degree, as you might imagine. But in the IT world, university degrees are pretty hard to come by. I mean, you could do the analysis at Google. An awful lot of people that get into IT early on spend their time there. They don't spend their time in a classic education. So we're working hard to try and adjust some of our standards while we have just started up a new apprenticeship program with Suffolk Community. So we're trying to do the same thing at our level that Julie is driving and that you're acknowledging, which I think is great. I go back to Maddie's comment. That was the origin of the union movement, Maddie, as you well know. I mean, that's why we have unions. It's just that kind of abuse that you just articulated. But what I'm intrigued by, frankly, this is an interesting group to talk about the inclusion, because Long Island is absolutely diverse, one of the most diverse regions in the country, but it certainly isn't inclusive. Boy, if we could start that conversation in every group. Our head of small business procurement, African-American woman from Bayshore. So I just had her replace me on the HIA board to give her greater exposure and greater experience. And we've got very active employee resource groups here. Obviously, diversity is a huge push going on for us. We've connected with over 70 different minority serving institutions. So we're really working on that. But I go back to the Boston experience. Boston had a terrible track record, as you recall. And there was an organization called Partnership Inc. that was created by people of color because there were so many Black students who were coming to those amazing universities in the Boston region. And as soon as they graduated, they went back. They went back to wherever they came from because they didn't think that Boston was a welcoming environment. And so we're now talking early 2000s when Keyspan sponsored, one of the big Democratic convention was there in like 2004, whenever it was. And we had 750 people on a Saturday, all members of Partnership Inc. So I'm just throwing this out there that if this group, leaders like Julie and like Maddie and I'm looking at you, Catherine, people that have been leaders around Long Island, if you could sort of embrace this. One more organization that we're working with is My Brother's Keeper. And that was started by Obama, and it didn't go entirely dormant for the last 4 years. It was funded by the state of New York. but and I don't know if you saw the special on PBS, but it's back, and they're trying to keep these young people of color in school, and then Girls Inc. is a girls equivalent. So, I mean, there's organizations out there, but they desperately need help from leadership. And so anyway, I just, I think you're starting, well, you're not starting something. I think you're embracing and motivating something, and I just wanted to support it.
Thank you, David. We appreciate the significance of your organization at BNL, and I'm glad you're here today. Thank you. And by the way, what I wanted to say is that I'm hearing a couple of good ideas, and anybody who wants to bring a leader from the Black community to any meeting as your guest, it will be at my expense, or the unit's expense rather than yours. So feel free to do that. If I was when I took over, I had a vision of having maybe 15% of the membership being people who didn't look exactly like me and Maddie. And I failed on that regard, but it's never too late to get some success.
And having voted for all that support, I just came out of a meeting. I have to go into another one. I apologize, but I wanted to catch as much of this as I could and say hello to all of you. So appreciate it very much. And
thank you for being here.
Carry on. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Ernie, may I? So I think this is all very positive. How far LIMBA can go with getting involved in these things, because I think part of the meeting was to try to set some direction for where LIMBA is going. I suspect that if you want more diversity, you can reach out. I don't know that you have to physically go to a barbershop, but whether you put little ads in local areas or in minority neighborhoods or churches, even, I'm sure that you could even arrange to speak there, and they'd be happy to do that. I think the idea of other folks reaching out to minority folks they know to bring them in, very efficient. It just doesn't always happen, but it would be good if they do it. I'm just curious, Julie looks very familiar. Julie, around 8 years ago, were you doing a presentation for LIA, jointly sponsored from, and I was at that thing by mistake, if you remember. It was to educators, and I think I'm hearing a little talk about education. So I think we're seeing a lot going on with education right now. And LIMBA is not primarily, it's a business group, but if we want to see business leaders, we need to deal with education. And what threw me I attended on the wrong day, that day that Julie made the presentation. She had one slide up, which compared the percentage of reading, the percentage of fourth graders. I'll never forget that slide. The headline for this column was percentage of fourth graders reading at grade level or 1 year behind, And in the 5 regions she broke out, not one region was 32%. Which is abominable. And today, Julie, you could tell me otherwise. I saw something in the Wall Street Journal. I think it's barely 34%. My daughter was teaching for 16 years in New York City school system. She just resigned. But she teaches 5th grade. I asked her, and she's an excellent teacher. I said, what percentage of kids are reading at grade level? 1/3. I don't think they would take this in China. And we're spending, Julie, you can tell me the number. I got to believe it's at least $26,000 a year here. So something is wrong. I don't know if we need to look at did critical race theory and other things fall into our schools as well? Because I think if we went back to how we taught in the 50s, kids would know how to read and write. There's something wrong with what's going on. And if we want to solve where we're coming from, that might be something to look at. But it would have to be for LIMBA, it would have to be sort of a sidebar, but Julie may want to comment on this. I think this level of performance in schools is abominable, and it hasn't changed. And the reason I asked Julie, how was that time? And the answer back then, 8 years ago, was, well, the Common Core testing got ahead of the Common Core curriculum. Mm-hmm. Well, it's had time to catch up. So how is it that barely 1/3 of kids are reading grade? And I saw something in the Wall Street Journal that when they get to 8th grade, and I forget if it's minorities or everybody, it's the percentage of kids proficient at reading in 8th grade is like 8% or and math is 14 or have that reversed, it just falls off a cliff. And how are these people going to move forward? So the question is, what do we do about that?
Yeah. So let me just, first of all, can you have a much better memory than I do? I'm not sure I know what I did 8 months ago, let alone 8 years ago, but I do know that I have presented at a subcommittee of the Long Island Association work that actually is done by the Long Island Education Coalition in partnership with the Long Island Association. The Long Island Education Coalition is a group of educational leaders. You know, there's school board members, superintendents, business folks, teachers, PTAs, anybody, you know, kind of in that school community sits on that coalition. But what we do every 2 years is a really extensive report. We call it the Costs and Outcomes Report of Long Island. So it takes a look at what is the cost of public education on Long Island, what drives that cost, and what are the outcomes. And, you know, looks at lots of different things, you know, and I mean, the reason the LIA partners with us, I think, to do that work is because they're, of course, all about business. Education is a business, and education and business depends on education to prepare, you know, the workforce that we need as an island, as communities, you know, to continue to thrive. So we are actually just coming up on kind of completion of that report, again, made so much more complex by a year and a half and a pandemic and what that did to public education. But it's a complicated question and a complicated answer, Ken, but one that we as educational leaders certainly look at continually.
It'd be great to get a copy of that. I'd like to be updated from 8 years ago. But anyway, so where are we going, folks? Ernie, what do you think? What's the move for LIMBA here?
Can I make a comment on that?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Devin.
I wanted to comment on Julie. Julie's spot on with everything she said. But the one problem that we have is, you know, culture, which means that society has figured that, you know, they could just throw money at things and fix it. And the problem that we have with education is, you know, education is trying to fix everything collectively in their own world. And the problem is it doesn't exist that way. There are cultural differences, there are family issues, there are economic issues that affect all of the education process. And that's the bigger issue, because what Julie and her group is trying to do is trying to solve all the issues, which it's impossible. And we're, again, this is like the word insanity, which is, you know, doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Now, just because the dynamics change and they come up with new ideas, I agree with them, and they're all great ideas. But until we do things such as solve a hunger problem, solve the economic problem, solve the moral obligation, solve the fact that there's either a one-parent household or no parent household, and educate them to give better opportunities, you know, we're going to repeat the mistakes. And that's what the issue is. And I speak from another experience too. My wife's a teacher.
You know, Maddie, what you said about hunger is would be something that wouldn't come to your mind necessarily, but it's
Correct.
really basic, you know.
Correct.
Children who are hungry are not growing and learning.
But you know, don't forget, we have Title I, and we throw extra money at underprivileged schools, including meals. So you know, that doesn't solve the problem at home. And Matthew's
No,
right
it
about it.
doesn't.
You know, and the single
good
parent
point.
thing is a big problem because of some of the government programs, or the idea that we pay people more to stay home instead of work is another problem. I don't know that we can solve all of this here, though. These are deep, deep problems. Yeah.
Correct.
Just a quick observation here. You know, we're sitting here trying to come up with some ideas to solve these problems, and I'm glad that we're addressing them and discussing them, which is terrific. But frankly, we're a bunch of overprivileged white people that are sitting around talking about this. And, you know, without feedback from the people in the trenches to find out what the issue is, and talking to people of color all over Long Island and teachers in school districts, you know, that are primarily people of color. I think it's great that we're having these discussions, but I think that in order to really come up with some good ideas, it's very important to have those discussions with the people who know more about them, the challenges, than we do.
Lynn, I think
There's no doubt.
Right, but
Yeah.
we got to get to the point where we actually recognize the problem, and that's what.
Yes, that's, like I said, it's great that we're addressing it. The other thing that I would also say too is that, you know, we talk a lot about brain drain, and, you know, why young people leave Long Island. And we all know that the cost of living on Long Island is very expensive. But if you talk to young people who have left Long Island, I find just personally that the young people that I know that have left Long Island, which are my kids and their friends, it's not just the cost of living, because some of them have migrated to New York City. It's the culture on Long Island that they don't like. And again, I think if we're trying to get younger people involved in the organization, which to me is the only way to really, you know, have it continue to grow, we've got to talk to some of those young people about what the challenges are for them, and, you know, not just sit in a room and talk to each other about it. I think
I'm sure I'm not attuned to what the culture issues are for young people, but what do you think they are?
Personally, I will tell you that my kids don't want to live on Long Island because they think it's an incredibly segregated and non-inclusive area. My kids, one of my sons lives in the city and he loves it there. And he pays through the nose. He just bought a 1,200 square foot house for $900,000, which is insanity to me. But they will pay to live there because they like the diversity and the inclusion. And my younger one moved to Colorado, and 90% of their friends don't want to live on Long Island. It's not just the cost of living, it's the atmosphere, it's the
Helen, I would
segregation.
have to agree. My two children are the same. They're not bought into the suburban
Exactly,
dream.
right,
They've rejected the suburban
exactly.
mythology in favor of a whole different mindset, a whole different place they'd like to be. And it's more about culture, interesting activities, restaurants, not sitting at home in your suburban house with a green grass yard and a white picket fence.
Yeah, it's
All
a
right,
it's a different mindset.
I want to pivot at this point. We have a suggestion that we want to put together a slate of speakers going forward. We have any ideas on that?
To address what issue? Like minority issue?
Any issue?
David Lloyd. I got one. David Lloyd. He's the executive director for Minority and Millennials. Young guy.
Tracy Edwards, NAACP.
Yep.
Okay.
She lives in Dix Hills.
And I know her personally, so I could talk to her. And who was that other person, Maddie?
Daniel Lloyd.
And where is he? What's his affiliation?
He's the executive director for Minority and Millennials. And Tracy knows him very well as well.
And Bob Doyle, you had something.
You had mentioned Maury McGinnis from Stony Brook, Gail Prudenti from Hofstra. We've been trying to.
I've been trying to get Gail through Fred for a while, and she's just not been available. Is there a change there?
I didn't know that she was not available. I can follow up again on that.
Please.
Yeah, sure. Another.
Yeah, Ernie, I'll speak with her. You know, it's just a matter of getting advance notice and coordinating with her schedule, which is not often easy, but I'll speak to her again.
How about some teachers that teach in, you know, high school teachers that teach in districts that are primarily people of color? I think we would all benefit from hearing those kinds of stories directly from the people in the trenches. I happen to know one who teaches in Central Islip, in Brentwood.
You know, I hate to get mercenary, but I have a problem. I have to fill a room when I go live to get, to get the revenues. And if they don't know the person at the people, that we're contacting, do we fill the room? Or do we just?
I think it's less about the person and more about the topic. If you were to put together a panel of teachers to address some of the concerns that Ken had, right, about what the issues are, and I'm sure Julie could work with us to put together sort of a panel of teachers to basically say, what's it really like in the educational system today on Long Island? I would think people would find that very powerful.
Julie, you have contact with people like that all the time, don't you?
Yeah, so this is my wondering, like, what is the topic? So first of all, like, we've talked about a lot of different people. I don't see them all on one panel because I see multiple topics, or I'm hearing multiple topics. One teacher certainly doesn't speak for all, but if if there's a topic, and the other thing is, when I think of LIMBA or when I think of the LIA, I think of business. And even though there's this, amazing connection between education and business, I think it's important when you're going to put educators in front of a business group to make sure that you're addressing thoughts, questions, concerns that a business group has. So if we can kind of distill what the topic is, Ernie, that you think would bring people to the table, or that the group would think would bring people to the table, I'm happy to work to I would bring in a mix of folks, both leadership and teachers, to, give some insight and what that looks like. But I do think that we need to make a connection. Like, why is this important?
It's the future of Long Island's economy and workforce. That's why we're interested as business people and residents.
Julie,
And that's the
would there be
question.
a big imposition on you if I asked you to assemble that panel?
No, not at all. It would be helpful. So Frank, I heard, that's the future of Long Island's
Economy and workforce.
economy and workforce. And you're looking, I wouldn't just say, let's talk about the challenges. I would say, like, let's talk about what's working well.
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
what do we need to bring to the table, or what do we need to shift to make sure that we're, addressing the needs of the future of Long Island's workforce.
How about what opportunities we are not fully exploiting as a title?
Too vague.
Vague?
Too nebulous.
Doesn't fit on my bumper sticker.
Yeah.
I just want to know where Paul is. Is that a real location, Paul? Or are you in a virtual background? Because that's where the next meeting should be. It looks great.
Very good. That's a tavern down on Chambers Street. And if anybody would like to buy that business, I have it available for sale.
Really?
Chambers Street, Manhattan?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Looks great.
So we're getting close to the end, aren't we?
Yep. 10
Yeah.
minutes or so.
So anybody else?
Do you have speakers for December, Ernie, or do we have anybody on the schedule?
I have Steve Engelbright, and he's going to be talking about environmental issues. And I'm going to ask John Tanagretti to lead that meeting.
Good.
Because he is an expert on that, And I'd like to see the experts on my panel take on, responsibility for certain meetings, which they're going to at least be as good as anybody, as I am, in asking questions and directing the conversation. So, whereas Julie and Maddie would be very good at leading the meetings on their topics.
I think that with the group that we have here, you should be receiving a steady stream of suggestions for future speakers. I mean, that's part of the reason we put the board together, and part of the reason you wanted to have this input. So, you know, I think it's important that we all kind of reach out to you with ideas and get the calendar filled up, you know.
Right, and you know, if you don't think of anything right now at the moment, and you go back to your office and you sit there and you say, this is something that should be addressed, send it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Rennie, are you like looking for some sort of, shall we say, updated vision mission statement? Because it seems, you know, the original founding of LIMBA and where you're trying to direct it today seems like it's moving in another direction and probably needs a little definition.
I don't know that we're walking away from business.
I'm not saying we're working from business, but okay, what are we doing with business? You know, are we? I'm really. There's been so much discussion here today on positive topics, and also, you know, how we bring education into this mix, since it will generate, God willing, more business
Well, you know,
leaders. You know, it's like I'm just a little lost in where we're going.
well, you know, you might perceive the bringing in of Black people as being a feel-good, good neighbor thing to do. It's actually part of business, because the more we have available to business, the more talent we have available to business, the better business is.
Sure. But Bernie, there's nothing you've done to prevent, you know, Black people or minorities from coming in. The reality is they haven't found the place.
No, that's
Right?
true, Ken. That's true, Ken. But it's like walking into a place where you've never been before and feeling welcome. It takes you can do it. I can do it. I'm sure Maddie and a few other people on this.
Well, I think the idea to invite folks in, and especially if you get a speaker, if you get Tracy Edwards, you should have no problem getting a lot of attendance from minority people, and then hopefully from that, you know, you convert them into members. So I think part of the attraction will be, you know, who do you get in, or are the topics even helpful? So even a topic, depending on if we were to bring in some Title I educators or educators that are in underprivileged neighborhoods and what they're going through. You could probably get some parents and other folks in, but you know, you want business people. So
we want business people. That's true. That's true. And that will always be consistent.
Yeah.
But we've never been exclusive in that area. If there are people who come to our meetings, they're retired accountants, you know, they just want to come and hear something interesting. And
well, you know, you're saying something else that's hitting me. You know, in a number of organizations that I'm involved in, which are, you know, the adult, the business people, and some retired people, they have a access. That's what they call it, access. So like YJP, Young Jewish Professionals, they have YJP Access, and the AJC has AJC Access, which is geared to a younger group, and it's run by younger folks, and so like young business leaders. We might try to create a LIMBA Access, which brings the next wave of what could be future business leaders in, you know, younger business people.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, Maddie, go ahead.
There's a group called WDI, which is Workforce Development Institute. There's a misnomer that they only do things for unions. In fact, what they do is they'll address all the issues that businesses have so they can find opportunities for them to hire people. That's a method for them. They actually can provide opportunities for businesses for training, at no cost to the business, no cost to the people who work for the business. So those are things that we should bring in as well. And Andrea Bonilla, who is the regional director, is a woman, Hispanic woman from Ecuador who lives in Patchogue, I believe. Or I'm sorry, Huntington. And she'd be really happy to meet with everybody and have conversation with them.
And you know her personally.
I do.
Would you call it for us and bring her in?
Sure.
And you might want to just bring her into a meeting, a live meeting that we have. Just let us see how we function, and if she wants to be a part of it.
Yeah, and then there's another one, which is same thing. It's another misnomer. The Commissioner of Labor, which is Roberta Reardon. She doesn't represent just members and workers. She represents business communities too.
Yeah, I remember.
You had her as a speaker.
Yeah.
did we have her as a
Yes.
speaker? We did.
Yes. Yes.
You know, we have so many speakers that I don't remember all of them. But in any case, now we're going to have the Public Service Commission, Carrie Meeks Gallagher. She's coming up next, and that's going to be a live meeting. That might be a good meeting to bring people into, because first of all, she's an excellent communicator, and she's smart as can be, and so it'd be a good one to do. So as we're getting ready to close, if anybody has a last minute thing they want to put out there, we can do that. And
Let me
Frank,
just mention the next meeting.
you have the for that, yeah, Carrie Meek Gallagher.
And that will be in person.
That will be in person. It's going to be at 1377 Motor Parkway in the lower level. That's the same building as Louis Joe's organization is in. And they've been very accommodating. So
Ernie, there will be a breakfast and a cost, right?
there will be a cost and there will be breakfast served. John Robertson is providing the breakfast there. He is he owns the Sexy Salad, and I talked to him yesterday. He said, "Don't worry about it. We'll take care of everything."
And I'm going to be updating the website so that admission cost can be done ahead of time, which I think is necessary. You don't even have a way. Well, you could pay cash at the door, right?
Yes.
Cash at the door or credit card through the website in advance.
Yeah. We prefer being paid up front because it means that we have no backlog at the front door. Hopefully, we'll have enough people to have a backlog at the front door.
And
Right,
it being a new location, we should probably highlight that, right? I mean, it's been such a time since we've had an in-person meeting, but people may reflexively think of going to the old location.
Well, even if they do, it's only across the street. It's on the other side of the expressway.
Yeah.
You know, so they'll be 10 minutes late. So we'll.
But your point is well made, and I think it's true. We have to make a point for people that haven't checked in the last couple of weeks that it's new, it's different, right?
Yeah.
And maybe an additional constant contact, Lynn, or
Yeah,
subject heading.
I actually put a message in the constant contact that basically announces that the next meeting is in person. So,
yeah,
with the address.
Will we be able to log in to the meeting if we can't attend?
I don't think so.
No, we will not on that one because they're not equipped. They're not equipped to do that.
As much as we would like to, it's just not available.
But I don't know what that arrangement would cost and what we need to do to make it happen. But if we go to it, we don't expect to be at that location on an ongoing basis. Top Golf is down the road. It's another exit away. They seem interested in having us there, and they made a very interesting offer to us that I think we could live with.
And do they have the technology? Is that what you're?
No, as far as I know, they do not have the technology. But if they're going to host meetings, I might be able to convince them to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're looking to do $60 million. Is that right, Bob?
Yes.
60 million
in year one.
In year one.
Wow.
Now that doesn't sound like a small amount of money to us. That's a lot of money, but to them, that's not a lot of money. They expect to do so much better than that.
Yeah.
In subsequent years. Yes.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people think that $60 million is chump change these days, but it's still a lot of money.
It's their first and only location in New York State at the moment. It's a brand new, beautiful facility. I know people may think it's a little bit of an unusual venue choice for a business group, but you know, they do seem nice. They do seem enthusiastic about having the organization.
And you
It
saw
is-
the room
it is
with
a-
me, Bob. You saw the
Yep.
room. It's
Yeah.
really
It's
nice.
beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Well, and it's a win-win. They could use to be introduced to the business community, and we're a business group.
Right. They're a very interesting organization. This is their 72nd location, I think, around the country, they said. And they've got a very interesting story to tell themselves. So maybe they would be willing to speak at a future meeting. I think how many didn't they want to, their goal was to be employing over 550 people when they got up and running with
I don't remember that part of
their
the
staff.
conversation.
They employ hundreds of people at that location. So, you know,
Yeah, so
a good development.
We do have options. Even Republic Airport, which host us, if the COVID wasn't still on the uppermost in their mind. Republic Airport has a big parking lot, and they have a good meeting room too. So I was over there one day, and they were very open to it, and they said, "We'll get back to you." And I got an email saying, "You know, we're really still concerned about COVID. And we're not going to open up the room for the public." But otherwise, that's a property that's owned by the state of New York. And
Meanwhile, Ernie, I'll try to do some research into what equipment could be purchased to do a hybrid meeting. I mean, obviously you need a Wi-Fi connection, you need a laptop with a camera, but that's only one. Somehow you want to be able to do like we're doing and mix up people in the room asking questions as well as people at home, and everybody seeing what's going on. I don't know exactly what's involved.
Well, I would appreciate it if you did that, Frank.
And maybe somebody's put a package together or something.
Well, we can't be the only organization trying to think like this. And
Exactly, right.
And I will just say,
yeah,
too, if we're talking about attracting a more diverse kind of group and younger people are going to want the option of attending virtually. That's just
I have to tell you now that I'm living in Queens, I'm not going to be able to make it to morning meetings in person, but I certainly would be happy to continue virtually.
Huntington Library has put together, in conjunction with Huntington Camera Club, a setup where we go there and do Zoom as well as in-person meetings, and we can participate through a system that, I don't know, they call it owls, several speakers that are placed throughout the auditorium. So we probably can ask one of the fellows at Huntington Library how that was set up.
Or use Huntington Library. Is that a possibility?
It could be. Well, the libraries require that the organization be domiciled in their service area. But I guess
I didn't find that. I found as long as one person lived there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so maybe we could. Maybe. All right, I think we're ready to wrap up. I just want to thank everybody who participated today. We really appreciate your thoughts and your comments, and hopefully we will have something come of this that makes the organization a little stronger, a little bit more diverse, a little bit more effective in the community.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Enjoy the weekend. Thank you.